We're looking at how to create a 4-part chord from triads. Because of the number of chord voicings available, I've created MIDI files to import into your sequencer to both hear them with different sounds and to see them in Piano Roll Edit. This is not every single voicing, but rather a good sampling of each type. There are 3 tones in a triad: the root, the third, and the fifth. To create a 4th voice, you double any one of these tones. Once any of those tones are doubled, you get a 4-voice chord. It's that simple. This table tells an important story. It says that the tones you double have a dramatic impact on the listener. These descriptions are as I hear. If you hear it a little differently, then write down your own description. There's no right or wrong here. So from my hearing perspective, when the root is doubled, you get a solid, strong sound. When the third is doubled, you get a lighter sound. When the fifth is doubled, you get a strong, slightly rounded sound. Generally, the guideline for which tones to double follow the harmonic overtone series. Since the root is the most common tone, look to double that first. Since the fifth is the next most common tone, double that, and so on. Again, I emphasize, this is a guideline. It is not, repeat, it is not, one more time, just so we got it, it is not a hard and fast rule or law. Let's try this out. Here are some 4-part chord voicings on G in root position with the root doubled. Keep in mind, these voicings can move up and down the span of orchestration. They are not restricted to any one register. Remember, there's a MIDI file for this example. Make sure you import it into a sequencing program with Piano Roll Edit. Take a listen. Here are some 4-part chord voicings on G in root position with the third doubled and in the first inversion with the third double. Here's an important observation. When in root position, you have fewer voicing choices to double the third. When the third is in the bass, you have more voicing choices for doubling the third. Keep in mind, these voicings can move up and down span of orchestration. Remember, there's a MIDI file for this example, so you can import it into your sequencer. Take a listen. Okay, here are some 4-part chord voicings on G in root position with the fifth doubled and in the second inversion with the fifth doubled. Again, with root in the bass, you have a few choices for doubling the fifth, but when the fifth is in the bass, you have more choices for doubling the fifth. Keep in mind, these voicings can move up and down span of orchestration. Remember, there's a MIDI file for this example. Import it into your sequencer to see this in Piano Roll Edit. Take a listen. For our purposes in this course, There is one way a fourth voice can be added, and that's by adding the seventh to the triad. Depending upon who you're writing for and what you're writing, you can either prepare the seventh and resolve it down, or, as we saw with Bruckner in Scoring Stages 1, you can add it without preparing it. Here I'm showing you how to add it by preparing it. For this example, there's both a MIDI and audio file. The first chord is a C. The next chord is F over A. Notice I've doubled the A. The chord tone F, which is the root of the chord, in the next bar becomes the seventh of the G. And here I've repeated it in the same voice. Then in the next bar, it resolves down to E. Look at the bass line and observe that it's in contrary motion to the soprano line. Take a listen. Okay, let's ask and answer this question. How and why did this technique of prepare, attack, and resolve come about? In my experience as a choir director, to get an amateur group of singers to perform a dissonance, the writer has to trick them by sounding the dissonance as a chord tone first, then as a dissonance in the next chord where they can sustain it. The reason the dissonance, here the seventh, resolves down instead of up is because when amateur singers perform the dissonance, their voices automatically slide down. You have the option of sustaining the tone, or as Bach, you can have the choral ensemble sing the tone a second time rather than sustaining it. Let me also say that outside of voices, experiment with resolving it up. Your organized screwing around assignment is to practice these doublings, starting with a keyboard sound to get them into your musical imagination. Then try them with strings, then low brass, and then voices if you have a choral patch you can work with. One note: if this were an actual harmony class instead of a composition course, working out these combinations would occupy the better part of a semester. So if a lot of this is new to you and you read some music, consider looking at Applied Professional Harmony 101 to help fill in what you may be missing. And to your success.